I just love you guys, and I appreciate you being here for us, and I appreciate you doing the things that we are doing, and I appreciate you building this. Please like this episode, as well as every other episode you do enjoy going on right now that I'm very excited about. And I see Doge, and I see the realignment of the educational system coming together for a real unique opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. And that's exciting more and more each day. It all comes back to coming back to yourself, taking your, you have three brains, right? You have the brain of the head, you have the brain of the heart, and you have the brain of the gut, gut instinct, right? I would love to really be able to get into some comfortable situations where we can start feeding back into the community that we haven't had in a long time. If we take the right approach, we have the ability to really dramatically affect not only the children grow, we could start turning revenues and rolling them into, for instance, here in this small town, seeing what kind of effects we have. We have coming up very shortly, as much as we should. And I think this is probably the strongest because it has emotion as well. And then those two signal to the brain to send out the chemicals that do the work that needs to be done according to whatever I have already talked a little bit about it with Emma on Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rodd. Hey folks, how you doing, man? I like that intro. There's a couple of skips in there I noticed that weren't there before, so I gotta figure that out. We had 10 people jump on right away, and then it dropped down to 3, and now we're back up to 7. So we got some people skipping around here. If you'll notice in the update today, or the description within the YouTube, up to 23 people. Hey, thanks for coming on, people. My tribe, my peeps, our peeps, us tribe. Really excited the way this thing's moving along. Want to give a big shout out. I'll get back to what I was saying in a second. I want to give a big shout out again to the Mangum City Library, public library. I'm on the 3rd floor in a beautiful studio here. We're set up to be able to take that next step. We were just talking about it a little earlier, in that we are in a position to. There's a lot of talk going around. And the reason I want to bring up this shout out for the public library here is because they're chatting with people and talking about the show, talking about what we're doing here, talking about our mission. Keep coming in, folks. Please hit subscribe if you like what we're talking about. Like the episode. Make comments in the comments section. There's comments here, of course. Yes, we'll be chatting here after a bit, answering your questions, getting into your comments, but comment on the YouTube episode itself. You can make comments after the show or during the show, whatever, down where people, they stay in the description of I don't know what it's called, but in the community, be sure and hit those. You guys are flying in early today. It looks like you guys are ready. We got about 60 people on already. We're not even 4 minutes in, a little over 60 people actually. And what I was saying about the library is they are really talking to people that are coming in and kind of asking what's going on. And, since it's a new thing in town, there's a lot of buzz going on around. I had a couple of teenagers. God, these guys were big old boys. And, 2 of them, really, really cool guys. The one guy I see walking his dog all the time down our street, and my dogs went out and started playing with them. He wasn't with his little puppy, but they started playing with him, and we started chatting, and he was talking about the show. And so there's just this little buzz going around. But in the library here, they're chatting about what's happening and what we're doing, and the purpose, that the reason that the library and I kind of started this together is because it's a dual relationship here. We're working with the ability for not only the youth, and that's one primary focus, especially with the Saturday shows with Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rodd. That cooperation between us and the library, they want more people coming into the library and going through the library, and so do I. And I don't want people coming to the house. That just is a nasty. We got over 100. Well, right at 100 people in right now. Appreciate you guys again. Don't forget, subscribe. Please subscribe. We should be. I should be hoping for a couple new subscriptions today, and we're really trying to hit that 10,000 subscribers mark. We're about 1,000 away ish, and help us get there. Come on, just start subscribe. Well, I mean, if you like it, if you like what you see and you like what we're talking about, the information's valuable to you, then hit a subscribe, and then hit the notices when we're not notified. We do a show every day, so there's different things that we're discussing. They all have to do with the great middle class and empower, in ways to empower the great middle class, and ways to get us all to come together. We've got the most powerful, not group. We have the most powerful entity ever in the world to be. Such an inspiring preview. Can't wait for the full interview with Adriene. Yeah. I'm looking for. I'll throw you up there. Adventure show in a minute. So in what we're going to preview today is Adriene and her story. She's an author. She's going to be later on in October. I'm going to have to move some times around a little bit. That's why I'm not saying it's actually scheduled for the 20th of October right now, but I have a standing meeting every Monday with Simon. He'll be on the show tomorrow or Saturday with Emma Lynn, and then he and I have a standing meeting that this Monday will be our first in every Monday moving forward from there. How did Adriene find the courage to turn pain into purpose? Yeah, that's a great question. We'll be getting into all these here shortly. You guys are really coming in hot, and I love it. I love what you guys do. I love what you guys do for the show, and I love I love this format, in that without this audience, it'd be a good show. I'm biased. I think it'd be a good show, but it's nothing like what it would be without the efforts and the dedication, and the real interest, the real thirst, the real vibe coming out of this audience. Wow, we're at 200 people. You guys are coming in hard. What does community? Oh boy, there are some. And this is my point. I mean, look at some of these questions. I'm just going to zip through a couple. I'm not going to answer it. I'll come back to answer them, but just so everybody can see what we're talking about here. The questions that come in is fascinating. You guys are so intelligent, and you make this show next level. Without you, we wouldn't have this. I'm just going to hit a couple more of these real quick. I mean, look at these questions. Cody, dude, awesome question. And I'm going to come back and hit each one of these, each and every one. Kobe, how can we break the stigma around mental health and trauma? God dang, dudes, you guys are killing it. John Morris, what advice would Adriene give to someone still afraid to speak out? Man, these are dynamic. And this is what we're all about. We're all about coming together and asking these questions from these experts that have been there and gone through it. And we were talking yesterday. I was a guest on another show, and we were talking. We've got 300 people here already, guys, and ladies and gentlemen. You are the reason this show is growing the way it is. Please subscribe. Please like the shows that you like and make comments. I mean, comments here in the live, obviously, but comments on the shows themselves. You know, where you can, in the community or the YouTube, let's say, you can make comments. I mean, we stream out to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and Instagram. And we're streaming live right now to each of those social platforms. And afterwards, I'll be reviewing what we talked about today. I told you about this voice message. I go to Telegram. You guys all familiar with Telegram? You know, Telegram. And right here, I've got a lot of people in Telegram that I got to answer too. Right here, social media, I do this, and you can see all these voice messages. You can see all these voice messages. Each one of those, you see the result of my social media, and it's from doing a voice message that then make.com, which is a automation that I use for marketing. We were talking about this yesterday. There's no way you could do all of this yourself without some sort of automation. And thank God for sons. And there's a reason I'm saying that, because 2 years ago when my granddaughter was born, Maddie, not Emma, Maddie's the newest, and she was born, and we're hanging out at the house, and I was there for several days, and one day we're eating. I remember Brandon made this air fried egg sandwich thing. Oh my God, it was so good. I'm hungry now. Oh, by the way, one of the guys in town, we were talking. He goes, "Hey, you want a breakfast burrito?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not turning that down. Love that stuff. Homemade tortillas and you know, the eggs and everything." He didn't know exactly what she had made in it, but I'm sitting over here next to me. I didn't want food in my mouth before I went on the show. Wow, guys, 444 people on right now. Again, subscribe to this channel. Let's get us to 10,000. That's the next milestone I want to hit. We're just shy of about 1,000 to get there. In other words, we're right on the edge of 9,000 subscribers. And we only started September 17, 2024, just a year and a month ago. Well, what's today's date? A year and 3 weeks ago. A year and 3 weeks ago. September, October, yeah. So very, very exciting. We've done 300, and this is 355th show right now. Tomorrow I'll be doing the Friday where I'll review all the shows of the week. It's a regular Friday update. So Mondays we have a planning session with Simon Hushfeld of eLeaf, and eLeaf Lab is where we are partnering up with to continue to build the Regeneration School project. So to the library itself, speaking of that, right now we're on the floor of kind of a dance hall kind of thing. If you see behind me, there's a stage, a couple of pianos. They'd have bands there, they'd have speakers and so forth. What we're going to do is we're going to take this whole setup, which you guys can't see, but there's a big old setup around here, cameras and lights and mics and one mic. I actually have several, but that'll be later. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to use two mics. I don't know why I originally bought. I remember Joe Heap from Patriot Video out in California, Patriot Productions. He longtime friend. He helped me set this system up. But on the automation, when I was at my granddaughter's birth, my oldest son started teaching me just ChatGPT Very simple. We're at 503 people on the show right now. ChatGPT. And so I started there, and then I started going and going and going. And then to the point where I talked to you about, I purchased this make.com system. And what that does is when I do a voicemail, it scrapes the information. It creates a digital image, which are always really cool. And then it takes my verbiage, my wording, and adjusts it slightly for each format that we're streaming out to, or in this case, sending social media posts out to. Then, of course, we do the shorts and the clips and those things to drive people back. I was at a store. I was picking up some like insect repellent stuff. Mosquitoes out here are badass, man. The ones in Chicago wouldn't touch me. The ones out here, they're like, boop, they come in and they just eat me alive. I'm just amazed. I've never had mosquitoes ever want to suck my blood, but out here, man, they're just badass. They're little tiny things, and they get you. They get you good. So when we go back up on stage there, and every once in a while I refer to this chair right here. It's a symbol, and that symbol stands for the high schoolers, the teenagers, 13 to 19, that have not yet started coming in. I'm going to leave that there until they start, which will be up on that stage, and we'll be having chairs and couches laid out properly, so that a half a dozen or whatever parents and their kids can sit and watch the show live, and then come up and join one at a time on stage as they wish, and ask questions on Saturdays to Emma Lynn, and then we'll have the live audience like you guys are now, asking questions while the young child is here and their parents are watching. Obviously, that's got to be the way it runs in. Maybe not the 18 or 19-year-olds. I don't know if they want to be seen with their parents or not. 16, 17-year-olds, they don't have a choice. There's a legal thing, right? And I don't know what all that impacts, but 500 people. Wow, you guys are amazing. Hands up to you. Questions are flying in like crazy. Someone's still, yeah. And I'll be getting to those in a second here, but I just wanted to go through before we started this preview, because this is a very important topic: sexual abuse, pedophilia. This is talk. We are talking about an accomplished author, wrote a very important piece, and just a fascinating person in general. The name of her book is Unbroken, and it's a beautiful. Well, it's a beautifully written story about a very devastating childhood, and we'll get into the generalities of that shortly. A couple more people just joined in. Thank you for showing up, for being here, for giving us your time to listen to the stories and advice and answering the questions that you all have. I very much am excited and impressed with how amazing our audience and our subscribers, how amazing you guys are. It's phenomenal. I always say I know a little bit about a lot of things, and that's why we have these varied subjects, or in my opinion, are able to handle these very varied subjects with the experts that come in. But you, the audience, every single person that comes on and takes a seat or takes a screen next to us gets involved, and after the show, they're just blown away by you folks. You guys are phenomenal. like and subscribe, please. So let's see. So we covered all that. Let's get into a little bit of the questions here as we roll along. We're moving through this. So schedule moving forward is Mondays. We're going to have, well, before I start to the questions, let me just schedule moving forward for everybody. Starting on Monday, we've already started Saturdays with Emma Lynn. That's coming up day after tomorrow. Fridays, tomorrow, we start Week in Review. And that's an open mic. And in that open mic, I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about whatever the big events that were out there over the previous week. And then I want to talk about the previous shows, review each show and what the theme of that show was and how that show went. And if you look inside of the description on the Fridays, we're listing those shows that were aired the Monday through Thursday before, and then we'll do a preview of Saturday and what we're anticipating chatting about. And it's going to be about giving teenagers, children, their voice, and the Regeneration School Project. So that's Friday and Saturday, and then so now Sunday is my time and our time, and just maybe cleaning up the house, getting caught up on some of the regular duties of living our lives each and every day, which I love my little place, and me and my dogs, we're gonna have to add on some because we got a lot of land and 2 big dogs and me, and we're all big, and there's too much closeness. So I come from a 3,000 typically square foot house kind of thing, plus maybe a basement like in Chicago. And, coming out here, I wanted a landing spot and then kind of figure out what I want to do from there. All I cared about was having a good piece of property, because that's something I've never really had, except in Fallbrook, which wasn't me, it was my parents, but I lived in a wonderful life there. It was truly a special place to grow up when I was a kid, because there was so much nature. And if you've heard that story before, the person that so I lived in a private street. The school was right over there. Like, you walked out the front doors like several hundred yards away right there. And then if you continued down my street, there would be about 5 houses down, there'd be a road that go up the hill. And at the top of that hill lived a gentleman who was a photographer for National Geographic. And I say was because this is when I was a kid. I mean, I was in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, something like that. It was a like middle school kind of situation, and so that hill was behind our house, several houses down, and then up on the hill. And then in our home, we had an awesome, oh God, I love that place. Walk in, living room right there on the left, big fireplace, and then this huge sliding glass doors. And outside of that was this grown. It reminds me of almost like a forest environment, and that was the side yard. And it had underneath a glass, it had a little stream that went through and into the house and back out, where you could just walk on it. So that was cool. But so you go through the living room, back to the right was the bedrooms and all that stuff. Cool, whatever. And you go through the living room, you go into the dining room, through the kitchen, into the back area. And in the back area is just this big open, had a big pool table in there, and we would kind of, that would be our fun area and just kind of goofing around. But to the left was another series of glass doors, and I turned that into my own little pet sanctuary. I had all sorts of neat stuff. I mean, from tarantulas to snakes to, this whole project that I was working on. I won't get into that. But if you leave that, come back out into the pool room, let's say, there's another set of huge glass doors, and you walk out into the backyard, and it was a really nice backyard. And then, so it was all grass on one side. There was a woodshed to the far end of the property. But if you come out and you walk straight up like 5 steps, and there was this elevated rose garden. And it was all roses all the way around. And the very back was this little tiny bird aviary. It never had any birds in it at that time. It was just built by the previous owner. And I don't know, we just used it for like a sitting area. But this what was really cool about this rose garden is it had a track around it. And it was all this like sand, gravel track. And in the middle was roses. And around the outside of this track was roses. So you can imagine it was pretty good sized. And then so you could walk up and then walk around and just see all the different rose bushes. It was just a really neat thing, which, I just never, thinking back, I realized how much fun and interesting and affecting to me. I think it had a lot to do in building some parts of me. And so there was that rose garden in the backyard. Our backyard had this huge wooden fence, probably. Now, again, I was small, so maybe these things weren't as huge as I'm thinking they were. But I'm guessing it was like 8-10 feet tall. And behind that, there was like, 30 acres of bird aviaries, one after the other, connected and so forth. And he had all these rare and just regular kind of birds. He had I think there were only 8. I think there were gray, some sort of rare swan. And he had like 6 or 7 of the only ones in the world alive. Now, I've assumed that was built up, and I don't know the story behind it anymore. But my point being, he had all these amazing birds. I built several bird aviaries growing up, so I know it had an impression on me, and it was a fascinating time in my life. So let's get back to these. Let's start on these questions here. Let's start off right out of the gate. Such an inspiring preview. Can't wait for the full interview with, I think it's Adriene is how you pronounce it. You know how horrible I am with names. I'm not proud of that, but it is what it is. I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better. Remembering. I remember faces and voices, big time. Names, though, I've always been that. It's a very bad habit, and I know a lot of people who have said the same thing to me about themselves. And I think the reason is you hear somebody's name and you just kind of flush it right through. And I've started to realize that, and still floating right out of just over 500 folks. Again, sign up for a subscription here. We're going to be coming out with a newsletter shortly. That's part of the meeting that we're talking about on Monday with Simon. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a half-hour, 45-minute meeting, and then he and I are going to start a live discussing that meeting and what the plans are coming up for the next steps of Leaf Lab and Regeneration School Project coming together and starting to fold our stories together. That'll be Monday. Tuesdays, starting on the 14th, we are every Tuesday, we'll be with my son Brandon. He has a podcast. You can find him on YouTube. He has a bunch of things, but you can find him on YouTube, BRANDONDUFF, on YouTube. So he's got an amazing community. He's been doing this longer than I have, very proficient at it. But in that show, it's dedicated to, kind of the Jetsons are coming lane. And in that lane, we're talking about multiple things. So we're talking about AI, we're talking about automation, we're We're talking about life hacks. And before I get into that, crypto, you know, the whole Bitcoin, the whole Ethereum, which I'm now a proud owner of a little bit of crypto. I've started just messing around with it, nothing serious, just trying to figure out. And there's nothing to figure out. You know, for all you old fogies out there like me, crypto is another. It's interesting. It's a twist because it's very volatile. It goes up and down in value. One day you could have $10 of it, and the next day you could have $40 of it. You know, or if you have 10,000, you know, you have 40,000. But then the next day you could have 32,000 or stuff like that. It's still a reality in that world. But it is the way with automation and AI. It's the way the world is going, and that's not going to change. It's only going to be more and more and more and more. Now, coupled with those things, blockchain and all that, finance, the new way to make money in today's world. My son has multiple streams of repeating and continuing revenue streams that each month come in, and he does all of this from his home because he, like I, stayed home with the kids. Now, I was in sales and I had a back surgery right when Brandon was born, so it was crazy but interesting, and you know, extremely rewarding in the aftermath. It wasn't planned, you know. It wasn't like Deb and I had said, okay, I'm going to do this and you're going to stay at home. And I was the primary breadwinner, but I was in sales, have been all my life, and could work from home instead of sending, you know, the kids off to a whatever, not sitter, but a daycare or something like that. And then when school started, obviously the schedules got a little more loose. During all the way through, they were in sports. I was involved all the way through it in every aspect of their sports. Sometimes too involved, but and I'm sure they'll not be afraid to mention that. But I mean, we used to have these cool routines. They were both wrestlers, as I was. I wrestled all the way in through college and into the Olympic trials and blew my knee out. And that was the end of that story. But when we'd go to wrestling, and you know, these things are all over the country-ish, you know, open AAU type events and freestyle and different ways that the sport is presented to the public and forms of skills and talents. They vary slightly. But when we go to these tournaments, you know, they'd have to make their weight. They'd go through that. And so we'd be at the place at, like, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 in the morning, whatever, the scales open, and there'd be all the other wrestlers and their parents or whatever. And we'd go in, we'd go through the thing. They'd get their weight marked on their arm and signed off, and then you could go eat. Well, each place we went, we'd find a sushi place. Oh my God. I grew up in Guam. Well, my parents lived in Guam for a while my grandmother watched my sister and I. That was when we were in Fallbrook too. But when that was going on, from that point on, we started eating things like octopus and squid and these different, what is now considered sushi, which was just back then just part of the culture's meals, right? Just like, you know, hamburgers and steaks are kind of part of our culture, hot dogs, right? So that was a really neat experience. And now Brandon is having that experience with his granddaughter. And I'm kind of jealous because don't tell them, but girls are way better than boys. So back to the questions here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that adventure show. That's very cool of you to say. Matt Daly, how did Adriene find the courage to turn pain into purpose? So her daughter was the driving force. So she grew up abused. Well, actually, hold on. Let me back off of that. her brother, her younger brother, she grew up in a very traumatic childhood. As I've said before, her mom later on they found had schizophrenia. I just imagine that how difficult as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 3-year-old, and your mom has this mental illness, and unfortunately, in the past, and one of the reasons we're talking so much about this these days is in the past we would always not know. It's like the lady I was on the show yesterday with her. She had made a comment that growing up, there's two things you don't talk about: politics and religion. And I made the comment, maybe that was kind of set up by the government, so to start this divisiveness, because if we're not talking, we can never move on. You can't give more than you have, and that saying has multiple meanings. But another one is mental illness, and 70% of children and adults suffer daily. They live daily with mental illness, whether that be depression. Look at the rates of suicide. I feel very bad, and I'm gonna make a heartfelt I fucked up kind of thing. I raised 5 boys, okay, and the last one, the youngest, in other words, the last one that I raised, he's now married, and I don't know if his child, Barbie's 3rd grandbaby. No. Yeah, 3rd grandbaby. They're having a lot of births. I said they're pumping them out yesterday to the lady, and she said, "You probably shouldn't describe it that way." I said, "Yeah, you're probably right. That's true." But he's at Leavenworth. He's a military police. Kansas, right? That's in Kansas, and he's at Leavenworth there and working the prison. And his older brother is sheriff in San Diego, so there's a lot of and his older brother's uncle, who, by the way, just happens to look kind of almost exactly like a big old dude, and he was a police officer. So there's a lot of service orientation in the family, which is honorable and amazing, and I thank them for their service. Actually, I haven't personally done that, but somebody pass it along. Producer Barbie, if you're on, if you pass it along, that'd be awesome. They had a traumatic event in their family this week, so they're in my prayers, and blessings go out. But what I'm getting at there is, back in high school, at one point, she had said to me, he's going through some real tough times, and concerned about depression. I'm like, what the hell's he got to be depressed about? I mean, dude was going to private schools and and living large, and she was at one point, and this was a very brief amount of time, so to speak, or either that or I was just not supportive because I didn't get it. And unfortunately, like a lot of people, I didn't try to get it. It didn't make sense to me. But I was way behind the times. If I knew then what I know now, right? Very famous saying, hindsight's 20/20. This show has given me hindsight of 20/20, because mental illness is a huge deal. I mean, suicide, thoughts of suicide, and same here with me. But I look back at that, coming from that, and that was before. That was during JR, and if you know what I mean by that, my nickname used to be JR, and I'd hide behind a mask, because I dealt with mental illness growing up the whole time. My family has dealt with mental illness as well, and addiction, and all sorts of things, all sorts of fun little triggers. And So we're almost at 5:10. A couple more people floating on in here. Thank you very much. Subscribe and like, please. Um, the 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 thing that I'm getting at with that young man is, I look back and just say, God, what a dick, what a dick, because look at they added some more cushions to the back there, so we got a little more look. The fact that as little as, let's see, what would that be? Let's say 15, let's say 10 years ago. I don't know if that's exactly right, but as little as 10 years ago, nobody had these conversations or ideas, and now it's a major part of this show. We have 4 lanes. That's one lane, and next to it is a similar lane, because it's literally killing our great middle class. And at best, you can't be 100% of yourself if you're dealing with those issues. You just can't. So to the point here that Matt is asking, her younger brother helped her be strong until at one point there was a huge, brutal attack she went through. She ended up in an orphanage where she had, and I don't know exactly where that connection is, but I think I can connect those dots. Sexual abuse in the orphanage and pedophilia is part of her story. And I'm right there thinking an old man, I'm assuming, and this, I don't know, 8-year-old girl, probably at that age, 7, 8-year-old girl. And she's going to clear up some of the actual facts and details here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, how did she find the courage to turn pain into purpose? At that point, prior to the orphanage, she realized she was the only one she had to make this through. So that was a first point of courage, turning pain into courage. That was the first, let's call it a baby step. And then, the orphanage, she went through, she could be broken now. She went through a very crazy period in her life. I'm talking about driving 100 miles an hour, 115, 150 miles an hour down the road. And, in those kind of things, you realize that that's a cry for help, because that's somebody that's trying to endanger their own lives. And it's not as dramatic as, doing something to yourself, or cutting yourself. You've seen those things. But even right next to me each and every day, and totally involved in his life. And just when his mom brought that up, I became a denier. And I look back at that just recently. I've thought back on that and thought, oh my God, how destructive that is to a situation that exists. That's critical. Critical meaning, it could tip very easily. It never did. And obviously very happy life now and all that, and maybe just an issue going on there. I don't know the details, and I'm embarrassed as hell by that. But it is fact. So Adriene found many different sources to get her way through. Her first husband was abusive as hell, and so she's come all the way through this. And like me, for her, writing is a healing episode. So there was multiple points or landing spots where she found strength and found the power to go on. So I hope that gives you a little bit there, Matt. Joey, What inspired her to finally share her story publicly? That I don't know. But I know that her, oh, and one more thing. When her daughter was born, that's the moment where, and this, you all can relate to this, even just from a normal life. Like when my oldest Brandon, when my oldest was born, I sat him down in the crib. He had a waterbed crib. It was so freaking awesome. Slept through the night because you know, coming out of the belly, it kind of mimics that, and it was kind of a transition into hard beds. But anyway, that first time I laid him down in his bedroom, in his crib, actually at that very first time, it was in our bedroom, in his crib. As I laid him down, gave him a kiss, and as I was coming up, I had an epiphany, and I realized that this little body, this little human, this little offspring, is 100% relying on me. Well, both of us, but I had the epiphany, is reliant on me. And that wasn't, I still needed to come a long way. I should have taken it further than I did. But that at that moment, I went from being just this cool dude, married and going to have a kid, and you know, just living life and living large, and you know, all that, to man, I'm a father. I've got a responsibility that goes beyond myself. I mean, you have a responsibility to your wife and your partner. In my case, my wife, your partner, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, I should say. But at that point, I had somebody that needed me to be there. Sometimes I get so sappy. So that was same with her. She when her daughter was born, she made there's a comment she made. I know I can take care of her, and that was the next. That was that next power that she drew from to become that next better person. As far as sharing her story publicly, I mean, with that kind of story, and again, she'll clear this up, but with that kind of story in your life, with all that path into adulthood, it's amazing she's here. And like I said before, we never, as little as 10 years ago, we never talked about this stuff. It was kind of like, you know, just keep it in the closet, you know, which is, you know, not what the society needs, and is finally, I think, starting to come up and recognize and realize. And shows like this and others, you know, they get into that. You know, the mainstream media, they may do a blip on something like this as a subject, or they'll have a 1 hour special that's, you know, edited and blah blah blah, and they tell a story and they're good. But this is me and you talking with 100 other people, 500 other people, from all around the world, and all of these issues are I have to say the developed world, because the undeveloped world, you know, some of the countries out there don't necessarily have priorities in that. I'm sure the problems are there, but there's a lot of so many other problems. It's just all problem. The whole thing is a problem. So, so that's that, Joe. I hope that answers your question there. Maria here has, how can someone start their healing journey after trauma? Oh, yeah. First of all, you have to realize that you can heal. You have to realize in yourself that you need to. Um, it depends on the trauma, of course, and the level of trauma. I mean, the story that she's telling is that there was trauma after trauma after trauma. Sometimes it's just, and you know what the worst part about it is, when you have that growing up, when you get older, you attract that repeated. Your body, your mind, your mind is very lazy-ish. In that, what I mean by that is it wants to stay comfortable. It doesn't want to be pushed. It wants to stay where it's in its lane. And so if you're growing up as a child with this, your brain is conditioned now to say, okay, this is what life is. And so you seek out that same scenario. So you marry people that you don't know. I mean, you're not consciously doing this, but so much abuse in families, husbands and wives or mates. Oh, should I tell this joke? I'm going to tell this joke. I was watching a comic the other day. Actually, a couple of them. And a couple of them were talking, and it's presented differently, but they were talking about the rate of divorces. And you know what the highest rate of divorce is? It's between lesbians by a huge amount. And just guess where the thing goes, because the next highest rate is men and women, husband and wives. And by a huge amount, the least divorces come from gay guys. And you can imagine what the punchline is there, and I won't get into it, but it cracked me up, but it's interesting. And the word gay means happy, right? So that's a little off color humor for me. But as far as starting your journey, first you have to realize it. You have to understand that it's there, and you have to accept it. You have to go through whatever the mourning or whatever that is. You have to kind of let it out, and you have to be settled with it. And then you have to find a purpose, a reason, or you have to have a reason to move forward. And when I say that, it's very important right here, right now. This is very, let's hover, I like to say. It's very important that when you move on talking about that, you have to build from the inside out. You have to love yourself. We were talking on the show yesterday. She was telling me I have to love myself. Again, going back, you can't give what you don't have. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to be able to get there in that journey of healing. You may feel better, and I'm going to explain why I'm saying this in a second. You can feel better, and you can definitely improve your own life, but what you can't do is you can't heal. You can't be the best version of yourself until you understand that you need to get back to yourself. There's all sorts of different pluses and minuses to that kind of language, because it's a little hippie sounding and all that. But I've really started to understand much more. Sorry, I'm moving this back a little bit. Trying to get the perfect setups here. You have to really understand that your healing is not a selfish thing, because once you work on yourself and make yourself that better person, then you have a better effect in the world. You're doing that for what you are to and towards other people. And that's a big point. That's a point of realization that we have to have. And so that journey, that healing, starts from within, because there's a point where you have to say, all the stuff that happened to me, isn't my fault. It isn't my fault. But you have to do that because otherwise then you're going to be the perpetrator. Perpetrator. Where did perpetrator come from? Anybody, is there a word, perpetrator? I kind of like the word. Perpetrator. You become the perpetrator. Or you're seeking out that same thing and your life just continues that whole way until you miserably die, or you die miserably. In other words, you're miserable all the way through your life to the end. However, she is an awesome example in that you can also turn that around. She lives just over the border in Texas. Well, she's in Middle Texas, but the life that she has now could not be unless she had started that journey in healing, and I can't wait to really get into that story with her. It's important. It's important. And it's important to me because I heal. This is a journey I'm still on. I started this journey in May of last year at the plastic show at my old industry. I had a break. I had a mental break, and for the weeks after that, Barbie saved my life. I mean, I've had issues, but that was a thing, and that was if I didn't have somebody in my life to settle my sails, so to speak, and to kind of get the wind back in them, who knows? I mean, seriously, who knows? Well, I know. I don't know if I know because I've wanted to kill myself since I was a teenager. That's why I'm so mad at myself that I didn't recognize what that young boy at that time, the young boy, now a young man, was going through. And I'd gone through it. I went through it alone. Back then you don't talk about stuff like that. I think the first time was like 16. I had this, and the only reason I didn't at that time, the only reason I didn't is because I was scared. I was afraid. And I was really afraid that what would I miss? That was the question that I asked back then. I did that. I was gone. I wasn't thinking about anybody else, not my friends, not my family, not my mom, not my sister. If I was gone, I mean, there's stories you hear about where a boy or a child walks in and their dads hung themselves or blown their brains out or and the devastating, that's devastating. That's beyond devastating. But even if you're not walking into that experience, when he or she or whatever is gone, it's the people that are left behind that are affected. When you're gone, you're gone. Wherever you end up, but you're gone. There's a different consciousness. I don't know what that is, but there is a different, obviously, consciousness. They say the soul, you can actually see it leave the body. And hopefully it's going that way. So that just kills me that not only did I not recognize it or believe it and just blow it off, which is asinine, but I dealt with it myself, which really makes it asinine. So let's move on. Maria, I hope that gave you some of the what you want. If you want some follow-up questions or information, let me know. We're coming up right on to an hour here. Man, appreciate you folks. So Cody, what role does community play in recovery? Wow, that's interesting. So recovery, and I'm assuming you're talking about addiction here, Cody, is dependent, right? What role community has, and hear me out. So you've got to have a good support, like I just talked about. You've got to have a good supporting community, and in order to make those things happen, meaning recovery and getting getting your life back and making your life worth living, so to speak. But the biggest thing is, first, you have to recognize it all comes from within. It all comes from us. It all starts from us. Without it starting from us, it's you may play the game or play the role, but you're not actively involved in a recovery without you, one, admitting to yourself and to a creator. In AA they talk about this, and it's kind of what brought me back to God. And we can get into the whole religion subject because God is real. Religion, but what they talk about in AA, you have to find a power that's higher than yourself, and that's something you can lean on. Something you can anchor onto, and that's the first thing you learn in it's very first steps. It's you don't have to be religious, but you do need to have a higher power, whatever that is, whatever that higher power is to you. And so it's really a great. I'm gonna sit back with you guys here a little bit. It's really a great way to present that because it's there's so much going on with religion, but that's really turning fast right now. But there is so much going on with religion that it kind of takes the edge off of you have to believe in God. That's a hard thing for some people to swallow, and at the time it would have been for me too. But I could buy into a higher power. That right away. I mean, not okay. That opened the door, and then God said, "Hey, that's me," and I figured that out. Sorry, I'm dry mouth today. So community, your community plays a big role, and in different families, and even in some of the families that been speaking about, there's some huge work that goes into that sometimes, especially with somebody that doesn't want to accept that they got a problem. They don't want to admit it. They don't want to acknowledge or give it any voice. That means a lifetime of misery and addiction and mental health, and, all those things. That's the key, and then you roll into the community, and that's to your point, Cody, where you do say it's a huge role. Once you start that step, in my case, once I started that step, May 15th, no, May 4th, because we went out, May 6th last year, that's coming to Jesus moment for me. Well, the aftermath was the coming to Jesus for me, because I had to stay there. Every day I had to change shirts 2 or 3 times while I went to the show. And I know people in that show were like, what the hell's going on with him? Because I was trying to hold it together, literally every word, every step, everything. I was different, and not in a good way yet. And not that I'm in a good way now, but I'm in a way, way, way better way now. And that's because of you guys and people in my life. I point back just because they're people in my life. But that was my finally looking back on everything. All the compartmentalizing I've been doing, all those boxes flew out on that evening, and I mean, so much terror and treachery and embarrassment that I put upon myself because of my own mental illness that just came to head. It came out like a volcano, and It was devastating for my workers, not my workers, they weren't there, my people, associates in the industry, my partner, my cherished one, my family, who are also cherished. That was bam. You know, they say you got to hit rock bottom before you can rise, right? Well, that was rock bottom. And I haven't made a historic rise or anything. It's not like a phoenix rising, which you like to imagine. But wow, God, I think back on that. It's just, this is why, see this story, this conversation, and at moments I'm taking a drink of water just to keep my nose from hurting too much and a little tear coming down. That was devastating to a lot of people. It was the beginning of recovery and replenishment for me. All right, so Cody, I hope that helps you out a bit there, my brother. Couple more here. Hey, Ronaldo's on. How you doing, girl? Kobe, how can we break the stigma around mental health and trauma? Yeah, that's this. This is how we do it. Kobe, come on every day. I mean, we have discussions with experts every day, and this is, you know, I call it a watch party on the political side, because we should really know who we're voting for. And again, I don't care if it's red or blue, elephant or donkey. I don't care what it is. But most politics, as we talked about yesterday, is local, and so it's the person. And you should. Producer Barbie used to get so angry in the beginning of our show, because she would think about, you know, people. She actually made, I kind of scoffed at it, but she actually made a very good suggestion or point that, you know, people should be allowed to vote if they have to, but they have to qualify, not just be a citizen, which is anti to what the reason it's set up. But she made a very good point about that argument, which sticks with me still today. And that was one of the very first shows, very first couple of shows. If you ever meet Producer Barbie, she's not a timid voice. She's you know, when she has very good, strong, intelligent thoughts and feelings and concerns about the world. And her point was, people just they don't even know who they're voting for. You know, people go on and they just say, oh, okay, I recognize that name, I like that name, I've seen this one in a commercial. Or they just say, okay, I got to vote, I want the sticker, I'm just going to vote straight down my party line. I can't do that because I don't have a party line. I'm an independent, registered independent. Actually, I got my voting card yesterday. It's in these documents here for Oklahoma. So I'm excited about it. It's right at the Catholic Church just down the street from my house. So very close polling place, which, by the way, very important midterms are coming up. So let's have a watch party. I'm going to start talking as that's heading on. I want to kind of tweak the focus into, where are we at now? 510 people on. Thank you all. Subscribe, please. Like the episode if you do like it. Make comments in the community, our YouTube community. Again, we're going to be coming out with a newsletter pretty soon. Monday's meeting with Simon is going to kind of have some of that discussion in it. I'm very excited about that because you know, passing this information along is very, very important. So the stigma is, we need to talk. I mean, that's when it all goes away. When we're talking about things and not in our little boxes, we're talking to each other about things openly. And it's a curiosity that you have to go into a conversation about. I'm not trying to prove something to you. I'm not trying to prove to you how much, or show you or show off how intelligent I am or smart I am. I'm going into a conversation with you about this, wanting to know, wanting to find out, wanting to learn, wanting to be a better person because I have that experience in my, at least heard, talk, known about it. That's how we get around. No. That's how we eliminate, decimate the stigmas that are still out there, not like it used to be, but way too much than it has, way too much than it should be, or whatever a more impactful sentence is there. So that Kobe, it's communication, it's talk, and it starts with you and the family. It talks. And you know what I'm starting to see and understand and believe, you got to start with your family right out of the gate in communication. You got to be that person that you can be leaned on. You can be there for advice. You can be there for different things, but you definitely need to create a environment with the family where it's an open conversation, an open discussion. It's open talks. Talking to the kids like real human beings. That's another reason I've just so much enjoyed doing the show with Emma, because I've gotten to really see firsthand at a much deeper and daily level of how that impacts positively a family's life, because those guys are amazing. They talk. They're crazy, but they're amazing. They're crazy like me, but they're look at who they produce. You can see her every Saturday at 10:30. 11:35. 11:35 every Saturday, and she's an impressive young lady, teenager, 16, podcaster, influencer, and she is becoming an actual influencer. I mean, actually a influencer. We had 7,000 people on the show last Saturday, 6,994, I think it was. So I think that's pretty. That's not a record on our show, but it is the second highest. And there's a bunch more underneath that in the fives, and then few in the two, several in the twos and threes, and then 1,000. And then you get other shows that people are like, I don't care about that subject, or it's me messing around or something. I don't know. So Kobe, that's how we get past it. We talk. We are the greatest force this world has ever known. When we become the giant, and there, if you read my book, which isn't out yet because of the show, the show is here because of the book. The book isn't here yet because of the show, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining, but figure out what I mean by that. So it's about talking. It's about communicating. It's about not being in your own little world. There's some people out there that just absolutely loved COVID. I've heard those stories. So let's move on. We got a couple more minutes here. John Morris, how you doing, John? What advice would Adriene give to someone still afraid to speak out? That's a hard one, because it depends on the situation, John, honestly. I mean, first of all, there's a couple reasons you might be afraid to reach out or speak out. One could be you could be in that situation and you could be fearful that something's happening. Now, if you're talking about mental health or mental illness or addiction, those things, one, denial, or two, you just that's a personality. Like me, I told you, I'm not afraid to get out there. In high school, my nickname was Showboat when I wrestled. I remember they used to play Stairway to Heaven and some of my, like in the song. You know how they have walk-up in baseball? They have walk-up songs now. I don't know how it got started, but for some reason, somebody had brought a thing and they started playing this music, and then it was every time when I'd wrestle, they play Stairway to Heaven. And then I got the nickname Showboat because I used to have a lot of fun when I wrestled. And I used to love to do kind of crazy things. Not crazy bad, crazy as in showboating. So some people just aren't built that way. Whatever that case is, find somebody who you can lean on, somebody who you can anchor to that supports you. In my case, find a producer Barbie or somebody like that is there for you. I did a video the other day, and it's really popular. It's getting a lot of comments and so forth. But that video says, I finally realized I used to think I had a lot of friends. I just know a lot of people, and it goes on to talk about it's a 35-second clip or something. It's actually pretty clever. I like it. Good music too. But in that, it talks about, again, just real quickly, a friend isn't somebody who just laughs at your jokes or is around in the good times. There's so many people that are around when there's not much to carry, when it's easy, when the spotlight is on. They're there for the entertainment and the good times and the good stuff. But where are the people? But are they also the people that are in the shadows, watching and asking you, "Hey, dude, I haven't heard from you in a while. You okay?" Mental health is a very personal thing to me, and I've got to get through this because it's sometimes difficult because memories come up, and then my nose starts tingling, and then see right here, a little bit of wetness coming out of it. But worse, I can't hide it because they get all choked up, right? The needing of somebody is because if you're alone in your own head during these times, it's really hard to have the right. You need to have sounding board, and somebody that is there. Like I said in that thing, you may be in a room full of people, but you need just a few hands to help you out. So at the end, it says, I don't count friends anymore. I just look around and see who's still there. I hope you heard that. I just look around and see who's still there. That's poignant. You need friends. You can't be, and I think that's a lot of mental illness right there. Is especially people that are living in just their own world. You need to have that interaction. We're human beings are we're at the highest level yet, 5'11". God, we're an hour and 20 minutes in. Human beings are a social species, a social animal. We physically and mentally need to be in a social environment. We need that. That's human beings. It is what it is. That's part of being a human DNA. It's part of the DNA of being a human. So, Ronaldo, how are you, my friend? You should have your son on about raising chickens and living on a farm. It's funny you say that because early on, you're talking about the younger son, the one in California, the father of Emily. But yeah, he and I actually talked about that early on. And at that time, I was just kind of figuring some things out and thought that'd be really cool, but couldn't conceive how it would work. But what I would do also is add to that, in the life hacks that Brandon, my older son, and I are now doing on Tuesdays, and he's been on the show a number of times already, but we're talking about crypto, AI, all the ways, new money in the new world is part of the title. But the life hacks part is growing food for yourself and on your own. He has this printer, and there's two different kind of printers now. There's the paper printer, right? Now there's the printers that make things. And he made this lettuce tree. And in this lettuce tree, they come off. Ronaldo knows what I'm talking about. And lettuce grows out because the water is feeding them. There's no soil. It's just straight in the water through the lettuce tree. She made Ronaldo, adding to your question here, she made a great point one day when we were chit-chatting. And she says, you should have those, and then underneath have a pond, because the plants will feed the fish, and then the fish will give nutrients to the plants. I thought, so you've got a 360 circle there, cycle, however you say that. But that's a really good idea. Hydroponic is what you guys know what hydroponic is, where it's just water. The roots, they grow wonderfully, right? And you've got to have certain conditions and all that, green room and all that. But then Ronaldo had mentioned, she wants to live off grid. She used to live off grid. She's got this property in Colorado, and I still don't quite understand how that all lays out. Just whatever. But this big old property out in Colorado, beautiful place. I've seen videos, on her social media with cows and horses, and there's one she's doing an ATV through a river or stream, and so just obviously a great place to be, but off grid. And I love that concept. That's kind of where this will eventually build to. Call it 100 acres and whatever, and then some water streaming through it, and a nice little house, and a lot of property, and a lot of animals. I want to do a horse rescue and a dog rescue, horse and dog rescue, horsey doggy, and in that you're obviously now you're growing your own food. You're growing and you can only. She was telling me the other day. You gotta be careful when you're doing that, because if the town is 50, 100 miles away, you once a month you go into town and get your supplies, and you got to make sure you got enough, right? Because let's say now Colorado, right, the snow's coming down. You've seen those things up in Alaska. They talk about that when they live off the earth, right? Pretty cool kind of shows, actually. I think one of them's called Sub-Zero or something like that. And they literally build their own cabins and their families and all that. And they live like we used to back in the settler days. So kind of cool stuff. But yeah, Ronaldo, to your question, it's a great idea. And it's something originally I thought of and just never have come back to. I'll have to ask him, because if you've seen in the shows with Brandon, he's got a personality much like mine. He's not afraid to talk. He loves it. Austin's more of a salt of the earth. I heard some people describe not a shy kid at all, not at all. But I don't. He actually brought it up, and then we've never brought it up again. I'd love to do that. It's a good idea. This is Insights and Straight Talk. I am your wonderful and adoring host, Rodd Duff. And with things like that going on, I just got to.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.